Chrysler Jeep in Budd Lake, where the service department is now open Saturdays 8 till 2.
More clouds arriving tonight. Look for that gusty wind to subside, down around 20 to 25. Mostly cloudy tomorrow with a period of light snow early on. Could be enough to whiten the ground. Temperatures warming slowly to 35 to 40 before the day is over. Then clearing at night, windy, turning colder in the teens. Tommy Else from the Oldies, 1510 Weather Center.
This year, why not celebrate Mardi Gras with a German accent? This weekend, the Black Forest Inn, Route 206.
Travel is possible through the radio and through the mind. So just remember, stick together in everything, and everything will be fine. Unless Dan and Jeff meet Frankenstein. A toast to the host of Frankenstein. May the force be with you. And may the force be with you. No more rehearsing and nursing upon. We know every part by heart. Over German lights, this is it. We'll hit the heights, and on what heights we'll hit. On with the show, this is it.
And welcome to Time Travel. This is your host, Dan Hollis, and my colleague, Jeff O'Boyle. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Danny. Cowabunga, Gugamanga. I haven't been traded for Oswald the Rabbit. I'm still here, and I'm very excited about our guest.
Wonderful. Well, we've got a real treat today. We are with Noel Blanc, who is the son of Mel Blanc. And I'd like to introduce Noel. How you doing, Noel?
What's up, Doc?
Which my dad started, and I have to compete to keep going. And, of course, there's no competition. My dad was 1,500 voices. I do about 6 or 7 now.
I thought he did about 3,000 voices, actually. I tried to count them one time.
They're still finding new ones.
Well, actually, my dad did he did 1,500, 1,800 different voices, maybe more. You might be right.
My God. And you were talking like a 60-year career here.
Yes, he has full 60 years. He actually started on radio before that. Probably had 70 years, including his start in radio up in Portland, Oregon.
Wow. Well, Noel, this is my colleague, Jeff O'Boyle. Jeff, say hi.
Hello, Noel.
Hello, O'Boyle.
I'd like to start out by asking you what your childhood must have been like.
Well, it was really fun growing up in the house that Bugs built, because, because I was there with all the characters. And, of course, all the kids would come by every day. I grew up in a neighborhood that was very sparse. It was out by the coast. It was Playa del Rey. Maybe there were 300 people there at that time.
Okay.
But all the kids would still come by all the time and want my dad's autograph and wanted to sign cells and parts of the film of the cartoons and anything that they could scrape up that had the Warner's characters on that he could sign. And he'd do all the voices and audition for him, and that continued on for about 45 years that he would do that every afternoon.
Oh, so you're saying that your friends that were kids were still stopping by the house for him to do the voices? They were
still stopping by, and then their kids would stop by, and their kids would stop by. So you had generations coming by the house. Strangely enough, on Halloween, when they moved into the Pacific Palisades, there were a lot more populous. The area was much more populated than Playa del Rey. And a good Halloween, they would get up to 2,000 kids starting at about 3 o'clock right after school and ending up about 10 o'clock at night. And my dad would sit at the door eat something, have a glass of whatever water with him all the time so he could keep his voice up, and audition for about 6.5 hours to all the kids that would come literally in bus loads from all over the community.
Oh my! So he was unbelievably accommodating.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Another one of his nicknames would have been Man of 2,000 Trick-or-Treaters.
That's true. People say, "Oh, there wasn't 2,000," but I tell you something that's really funny, Dan. When I lived in Beverly Hills for about 33 years,
Right.
each Halloween we would get up to 1,500 trick-or-treaters also.
Wow.
And that was the average Halloween. I'd run out of everything. I'd start serving coleslaw at about 8:00. You know, and not too many kids would come back once they had a bag full of coleslaw. They said, "I'm not going to go there next year."
Yeah, we'll probably have broccoli next year.
Yeah.
Was it weird for you though, sitting in the movie theater and watching these cartoons, thinking that not only are they these great characters, but that's my father?
Sure, and if a Disney cartoon came up, or a cartoon that wasn't his, Heckle and Jekyll or something like that, I would be upset because I really wanted to see the Looney Tunes spread and the Warner Brothers insignia go up and that wonderful music come on. And I was like disappointed when I go to the theater and that wasn't the cartoon. But when it was, boy, it made me feel terrific.
And what about your mom, Estelle? How did she feel about Mel's
she
line
loved
of work?
Well, they were partners because when they started on a radio show together when they were just dating.
Was that Cobwebs and Nuts?
Cobwebs and Nuts in Portland and Oregon.
Right.
And they were working together, $15 a week for the two of them total.
Okay.
And they had to do an hour show a day, 6 days a week, write it, and do all the voices on it. So they were doing not only all the talent, all the writing, but it was their shows. It was like a nighttime disc jockey show.
Wow.
It was from 9 to 10 o'clock at night, prime time, and they were getting each $6 a week. So that was not real good pay. They said instead of starving in Portland, they better come down to L.A.
And that was your mom's idea, I think.
Yes. She says, I'm going to have to come down to L.A. because $6 a week, each of us is not going to, they had to put a penny here and a penny. She was telling me about the time that they went to get popcorn.
Right.
And they smelled this wonderful popcorn aroma coming out of this little old popcorn machine thing on the street, and it was 5 cents. And they dug in their pockets, and all they could come up with 4 pennies. They tore the car apart, seats, pulled the seats back, looked inside the seat, couldn't find that extra penny. And that's when they decided, well, we better come down. They came down to Los Angeles and lived with my mom's mother for a couple of years, and my dad knocked on doors to try to get into Warner Brothers because he knew he could do voices. He didn't know what he could do, but he knew that on the radio that he could do all the dialects and all these strange laughs and everything. And he felt that Warner Brothers voices at that time, they were using the regular contract players from the movies, so the voices weren't really good. They were just squeaky.
Right.
Most of them sound like Mickey Mouse, basically.
Right.
So he would knock on the door and try to get in the door there, and they say, I'm sorry, we have all the contract players, we have all the voices we need. He did this for almost 2 years. And finally, the guy that kept saying, well, we have all the voices that we need, finally he died, which was terrific.
Opportunity knocks.
The next guy in line was Chuck Jones, and he says, let's hear what you got. And from then on, he did every single Warner Brothers cartoon character except for Elmer Fudd, which he did for 30 years after Arthur Q. Bryan died in 1956. So he did every cartoon character that Warner's did. Daffy, Tweety, Sylvester, Foghorn, Leghorn, Pepe Le Pew, Tasmanian Devil, Marvin Marsh, and I can keep on going,
Unbelievable.
Speedy Gonzales, Pepe Le Pew. I said Pepe Bugs.
Yeah.
You just keep on going. And then at the other studios, you don't realize he invented the voice of Woody Woodpecker.
That was about 1940, I believe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Walter Lantz called him and said, we've got this little cute woodpecker, and he doesn't have a voice yet, but he pecks, and he pecks on wood like, like peck. So my dad pulled out that laugh that he invented when he was about in the 8th grade at school. He used to run up and down the halls with that crazy laugh. And he said, this would be perfect if you speed it a little for Woody, and then at the end we'll go, that's the pecking of the woodpecker. And a lot of the cartoons, the pecking of the woodpecker would go into the laugh. And Walter just loved that, the laugh and the voice, and my dad taught Walter's wife how to do the laugh in about 1949. So my dad did about 10 years, and then she took over.
But your dad and Walter remained friends, though, after that.
Yes, oh, sure.
Yeah.
And then my dad was doing all the vocal sound effects for Tom and Jerry also that not too many people know.
Wow. So much more, well above and beyond Warner Brothers.
Oh, yes. And then when you got to Hanna-Barbera, of course, the Flintstones and Jetsons, and then Heathcliff for another, he was just all over the place.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to sneak away just for a few minutes.
Okay.
And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about Warner Brothers and a certain friend of the family named Jack Benny.
Jack, good. Go ahead and play the spot.
We'll be back with Noel Blanc, son of Mel Blanc, right after this.
I'm a pirate, seagoing Sam, the bloodthirstiest, shoot-'em-firstiest, doggone worstiest buccaneer has ever sailed the Spanish Main.
Be very, very quiet. I'm hunting rabbits.
This year, why not celebrate Mardi Gras with a German accent? This weekend, the Black Forest Inn, Route 206 in Stanhope, is celebrating with wonderful Cajun and German specials. At the Black Forest Inn, you'll find the best Cajun food this side of Bourbon Street. Try spicy Cajun crawfish, grilled portobello with crawfish and bay scallops, or fried alligator with Cajun mayonnaise. And of course, a variety of delicious German specialties that the Black Forest Inn is famous for. The Black Forest Inn also has an impressive wine list and full bar, so stop by and enjoy the Black Forest Inn's cozy, warm, relaxing atmosphere, complete with an immense fireplace. There couldn't be a better place to celebrate Mardi Gras. Plus, there will be live music and dancing all weekend long. So stop by this weekend and help celebrate Mardi Gras at the Black Forest Inn, Route 206 in Stanhope, right outside Netcom. Call 973-347-3344.
Some were barefoot. Most had shoes on, but everyone jumped to their feet and cheered this week when Neil Simon's hilarious romantic comedy Barefoot in the Park opened on Broadway in a sensational new production. Love conquers all, exclaims Clive Barnes of the New York Post, adding, Amanda Peet is adorable. Terry Teachout of the Wall Street Journal raves. Scott Elliott's production is a triumph. Go with my blessing and have a good time. Just Cagle of CBS cheers. Patrick Wilson is perfect. AP exclaims, Jill Clayburgh is a joy to watch. Brimming with charm, says Entertainment Weekly, adding, Tony Roberts nails every joke. And finally, The Hollywood Reporter hails Barefoot as one of Neil Simon's best comedies, a certified crowd pleaser. One thing's for sure, love is in the air on Broadway, and the time to get tickets to this delightful new smash is right now. Just call telecharge.com at 212-239-6200 for Neil Simon's Barefoot in the Park.
And now for the bonus round. Name 3 people we spotlight during the month of February.
Well, there's Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, and of course, Smith.
Smith? Who's Smith?
Smith Chrysler Jeep Dodge on Route 31 in Washington. And Smith is celebrating President's Day all month long with great deals that'll save you lots of presidents. Right now, get 0% financing up to 60 months on most models or cash incentives as much as $7,000 in addition to their normal huge discounts. All in a wide selection of new and pre-owned vehicles at Smith Chrysler Jeep Dodge. And Smith has a large selection of popular certified pre-owned vehicles that are sweeter than cherry pie. And you'll be glad to know that the 5-star service department at Smith is second to none. It's a star-spangled President's Day sale going on now at Smith Chrysler Jeep Dodge on Route 31 in nearby Washington, New Jersey, and online at smithchrysler.com.
Yoinks and away! 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 Yoinks and away!
And we're back with Time Travel and our special guest, Noel Blanc, the son of Mel Blanc. And Noel, how you doing?
I'm my dad was saying, doing great. I'm having a good. It's great to be on your show. I love all these 1510.
I hope you have enough food for all the characters there.
Before we talk about the Jack Benny Show, I want to talk a little bit about animation art because you said, hey, talk a little bit about what is animation art.
Yeah, sure.
And animation art is the actual cartoon drawings and paintings that went under the camera to give all those great Disney and Warner Brothers cartoons and the Flintstones and Jetsons. Of course, now it's all computer.
Right.
And they do wonderful work with computer, but you don't have that art anymore.
You're talking about the cells.
The cells that you can hang on the wall, they call them cells because they were celluloid, and they didn't realize that artists had to paint 24 of those per second.
Amazing.
And they were like 8 by 10 piece, 8 inches by 10 inches. So you had 300 or 400 artists spending 9 months doing a 7.5-minute cartoon because they had to pay 24 of those per second. You add 60 seconds in a minute and then 7.5 minutes, you see how many thousands.
Say that again, 9 months.
It took them 9 months.
For one 7-minute cartoon.
And then Disney took a couple of years to do Fantasia or Cinderella or something like that. They had about 1,200 animators. But then when they were done, instead of keeping the art, they would wash it off because the cartoon was done. So now we'll wash most of these off and use the celluloid again.
Oh, my goodness.
So the smart people collected it and took it out the back door and gave it on. My dad used to send them out as Christmas cards, cut them up and paste them on a piece of art paper and say Merry Christmas from Tweety, Sylvester, whatever character he could get. But animation art became an amazing collectible. And then I was hired by the Great American Ink Company. I told you, remember, to talk about animation art.
Right.
And this is about 13 years ago because there's very few people that sell animation art anymore. So I'm just going to throw a fast plug and a fast phone number, okay?
You got it. Send it away.
Because the guys are sitting around there waiting to be called because they love to talk about any kind of cartoon and any kind of animation art, and they'll send you an incredible catalog. I would always say if you're a cheapie, you can paste the catalog up on the wall. It's so gorgeous because it's got every major character in cartoons up until the present. The Simpsons were done by hand all the way up until about 3 years ago.
Really?
So we were able to
the old-fashioned way.
Too. Yeah. So everybody right now, ready? Call 1-800-552-BUGS. That's 552-BUGS. The guys are down there. They'll answer the phone, and they'll tell you all about animation art and send you out a free catalog, and there's no obligation or nothing. So you just find out a lot about cartoons. And that 1-800-552-BUGS number is, I'm sure they're probably listening to the show because I told them that you were on the net.
And tell them you heard it here on Time Travel.
On Time Travel. Absolutely.
And I'll tell you, when Mel Blanc's son asks you to order a catalog with the characters, you do it because you got to see this.
Because you won't believe the cartoons that you remember as a kid, know, all these wonderful drawings. And we used to give this stuff away. My dad would give them, all these kids, they'd come to the door and they'd get all these wonderful cells. Of course, 25 years later, they came by in their Ferraris and said, thanks, Mel.
Well, nobody knew it was going to be an investment.
We used to walk around Disneyland, and they were selling this for $2 a piece, these wonderful Cinderellas and these incredible...
Amazing.
Jiminy Crickets and everything for $2. Who knew what was going to happen with it?
Amazing.
Well,
Noel, it was a lot of fun.
Oh, Noel, this is Jeff here.
Yeah,
and
hey, go ahead.
I was thinking that you were really everybody that didn't keep the cells. They're pioneers because if it wasn't for the people that didn't keep the cells, there'd be more of the original ones still left.
That's true, and they washed most of those because the celluloid, especially during the war years, it was valuable stuff. It was hard to find celluloid for the studios for the cartoonists to draw on,
right?
To paint on.
So do you have a big collection yourself?
Oh, sure, I have it all over the walls here.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? My dad collected it and loved it. It's Americana art, and we can put it on the wall, and it sure is a lot prettier than a stock certificate. I'll tell you that.
How much did it cost to make a 7-minute cartoon back in the 40s on average?
It was about 70 feet a minute. So a foot rather, 90 feet a minute. So you figure about $9,000 a minute. It was 7 minutes, $63,000, about $75,000 by the time the print got out the door.
Wow.
Now, of course, you can multiply that times 25 or 30.
Now we have videotape and DVDs and everything else. We can watch things anytime we want. But back then, in the 40s, the 50s, and so forth, did they show the same theatrical cartoons? Did they ever rerun them or repeat them?
Yes, but my dad was making 52 of them a year. So basically, Warner Brothers had enough for every week of the year. When they put out a feature, they could put out a new cartoon with a feature every single time. So if there's one that you really loved. Yeah, in the heyday of Warner Brothers cartoons, 50 cartoons a year were a lot of cartoons.
I'll say.
And you never saw the same one twice in a theater. And of course, there wasn't any television until until the Bugs Bunny show came in 1960, and the Flintstones both about the same time in 1960. And then you started seeing some of the wonderful cartoons that you'd never seen before.
When my dad was growing up in Brooklyn in the 1930s and 40s, he would talk about sometimes related to the matinee on a Saturday. and every once in a while the local theater would have a 2-hour block of cartoons.
Absolutely. We did right here. In fact, where I am in Santa Monica right now, about 50 feet in front of me is the beach. And right on the beach at that time, there's nothing there now except sand, were two great theaters, and one of them called the Rosemary every Saturday would run 2 hours of my dad's cartoons. So you know where I was. I was down there watching Bugs, Tweety, Sylvester, and everybody else, you know, for 2 hours every Saturday, and I'd take a troop of kids with me, and it was free.
Yeah.
Because they used to make it up on the 5-cent popcorn, which is now $3.80 a bag or whatever it is.
Oh, I wish it was $3.80. I think it's more now.
That's how Saturday morning cartoons started.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. Free film, and you could buy the popcorn and drinks, and that was how they made their money.
Now, another person that was pretty special in your father's life and in your life, too, was Jack Benny.
Jack Benny, oh my gosh. Jack Benny was, well, he was about the most famous personality in the world at that time.
Oh, my God.
In the 40s, late 30s, early 40s, through the 50s and 60s.
Radio, television, vaudeville.
Everything, sure. He was known all over the world. And he used to spend his summers up at Big Bear with us. We still go to the same cabin. My wife and I actually spent about 8 months out of the year up at Big Bear in the same cabin on the lake that my dad got for $600 back there in 1946.
Oh, right.
That's when you could get an acre on the lake for $600. And Benny used to come up with his daughter and wife, and then Lucille Ball used to tag along, and George Burns would come up. There were some wonderful stories.
So they were like almost, Jack was almost like would you say he was almost an uncle figure to you?
Yes, I would say so. And Jack Benny, there's a couple of stories. He'd come up and he loved fishing, right?
Yeah.
So we went into town to get a fishing license. And he didn't want to, because he was so well known, if people know it was Jack Benny walking around the little village, they would have just gone all over him, you know, it would have been terrible. So he goes in with sunglasses, and he's getting a fishing license, and Fred, the sporting goods store owner, says a name, and he says, we'll save that for later. He says age, Benny says 39. He says eyes, he says robin's egg blue. So Fred is wondering, who is this guy? So he figures it out, eggs, robin's egg blue, and then he says, well, sir, it's going to be $5. And Benny says, $5? He says, can't you take 3? Then he knew it was Jack Benny. So he shouts on the top of his lungs, Jack Benny. With that, the store was only about 3 feet wide and was right out to the street. Well, people started hearing that Jack Benny was in town. By the time that we moved toward the car and down the street, he had a crowd following him, and this is the way it was with Jack Benny all the time.
That just showed the height of his popularity.
Yes. And then he was such a funny guy, schemer. Jimmy Stewart had just given him this wonderful, wonderful jacket, this wonderful gabardine jacket to wear while he's fishing. So we go to Andy Devine's Sportsman's Tavern, and this is where Andy Devine gave you all the chicken you could eat, all the fried chicken, for one price. Well, the woman kept bringing more platters of chicken to the table with my dad, Benny, and myself, and wondering, where are the bones? She couldn't understand it, and Benny kept winking. And we'd see him with a napkin folding up the chicken and putting it into his pockets with a napkin around it into this windbreaker. So we went through about 4 platters of chicken, and he whispers to us, he says, boy, when we go out on the boat, we're going to have plenty to eat. By the time we got back to the cabin, that beautiful $300 windbreaker, or whatever Jimmy Stewart spent on it, had the 2 largest oil spots you had ever seen that never came out. That was the end of the windbreaker. And the windbreaker smelled like chicken and oil for the rest of the time, and that way you had to throw it away. But Benny was like that. He was really a funny and devil-may-care kind of a fellow, and the sweetest man in the world.
We're going to sneak away again, and when we come back, I have a couple more questions about Jack. I just know that he was very close to your father.
Yes.
A lot of the things that people thought he was really like, he wasn't, and that's what I like to explore.
He was not cheap, that's for sure.
Exactly. So we'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Okay.
Let's bring out our star, the creator and originator of Bugs Bunny, Mel Blanc. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very grateful for this opportunity to meet you and to introduce myself. I'd like to tell you a little about my background. When I first came to Hollywood, it seems when film producers heard my vocal calisthenics, consistently and loud they shouted, no. This guy don't rate with movie photogenics. They said my face was meant for radio.
What happens when an American English professor meets a Kurdish pizza maker in Denmark? No, it's not a joke. It's the world premiere of a delightful new play, part of the Centenary Stage Company's renowned women's playwright series. Hello, I'm Carl Wallnow, inviting you to see The Poetry of Pizza by Deborah Brevoort, February 24th through March 12th at Centenary Stage. The Poetry of Pizza is a touching romantic comedy served up with culinary courtships, a chaotic comedy of errors, and, of course, pizza. Performances of the Poetry of Pizza are at 8 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays, and Sunday matinees at 2:30. Thursday is Family Night at 7:30. There will also be Wednesday matinees on March 1st at 2:30 and March 8th at 11 a.m. Tickets are from $15 to $20 and are available online at www.centenarystageco.org or by ordering at the box office. Call 908-979-0900 for information or reservations. Don't miss the Poetry of Pizza, February 24th through March 12th at Centenary Stage.
Some news is so good, you just want to pinch yourself when you hear it. Well, this year's WRNJ radio auction to benefit Hackettstown Regional Medical Center is coming up March 3rd and 4th. Okay, go ahead, pinch. You'll get to bid on all kinds of products and services that have been generously donated by local businesses. And if there's something you'd like to donate to our auction, just call Wanda here at the radio station at 850-1000. The radio auction is coming, so go ahead, pinch.
Brought to you by Johnson Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, and Bud Lake, where the service department is now open Saturdays 8 till 2.
Look for that gusty northwest wind to subside tonight, increasing clouds 20 to 25. Mostly cloudy tomorrow with a period of light snow early on. Will be enough to whiten the ground in some areas. Look for a late day high of 35 to 40, then windy, turning colder at night with a clearing sky. Tommy Else from the Oldies, 1510 Weather Center.
Hi, friends. Doc South here, saying that while most listeners to the Doc South Oldie Show are lucky enough to get the show loud and clear, there are some poor souls out on the fringes of our signal who have to go to certain extremes.
George, you climb down from that chimney this instant.
It's working, Martha. 8 rolls of aluminum foil wrapped around the house, and Doc's coming in loud and clear.
That's the Doc South Oldie Show, Saturdays, 9 to 1, only on Oldies 1510 WRNJ.
No, Monsieur Benny. Once more you have made the same mistake.
I'm sorry. I'll take it again.
Oui. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Do not hold your bow too tightly. It will help you play more lightly. Play it softer, not so brassy.
And we're back to time travel, and with our special guest, Noel Blanc, the son of Mel Blanc. And Noel, you do some awesome voices yourself, don't you? Hi, Noel.
He was unique. My dad was totally unique. He had the vocal cords the size of, Jersey City. He had 8-octave vocal range. He had perfect pitch. You could sit on the piano, and he could tell you what note you were sitting on. And he was a brilliant actor. You put that all together in one person. And a great singer, by the way. A terrific singer. When he sang on his own, he sounded like Crosby.
Well, he could sing all the characters.
Yes, and he with the lead sheet, he could do Bug singing a song and do 9-part harmony with the other characters without another piece of music in front of him, just listening to the harmony.
Amazing.
He was a singular, a voice savant, if you want to call it, and nobody came close. So copying him is difficult because nobody can really copy him. We do our best. I do Bugs, Porky, Tweety, Sylvester, a few of the others, but it takes 15, 20 of us to do all the characters, and we still don't do them right.
Right.
You know?
Now, that piece that we just heard as we came back was, of course, your father with Jack Benny, Professor LeBlanc character.
Yes, the French violin teacher.
Jack, in real life, was a sweetheart, wasn't he?
Oh, yes, wonderful man. Just the most giving, kindest person. And, I was a young kid most of the time with Jack. I was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. Mm-hmm. And both he and George Burns and Gracie Allen also were just the sweetest to me. I used to sit on Gracie Allen's lap during the rehearsal. And Jack Benny would treat me like an adult. I mean, we'd have wonderful times, especially in the mountains during the time that he would spend the 2 or 3 weeks each summer that he'd come up there. Mm-hmm. And he was giving to charities. He'd play his violin all over the world with orchestras to raise money.
So I hate to burst the bubble out there. If any of you think that he's really stingy, still think that after all these years. He was really a giving human being.
And strangely enough, he gave most of his money away, too, because when he passed away, it wasn't a big fortune that he left, $5 or $6 million, compared to Hope's, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right.
He gave a lot of it away, and he gave a lot of it to charity.
Wow.
And he probably made more money than they all did at one time. When he was on top, there was nobody making the money like Jack Benny.
Now, when he would be with your family, with the Blanc family, his family, your family, was he inherently funny?
Yes. Yes, he was. He was just the way he appeared on television.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have to have jokes. That was very much unlike Bob Hope, who really wasn't that funny until he had the writing material. But Jack Benny was naturally a funny guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there were certain people that were naturally funny. Movie stars that you don't realize, Walter Matthau, Tony Curtis, are really great comedians naturally. And you would never know that because most of the time you saw them act, you know.
Right.
But Benny was a natural comedian, and he was just funny. And he never commanded the show as far as, if you notice, he gave the funny lines in the radio show to all that great characters that supported him.
Right.
Bill Harris, Dennis Day, Don Wilson, Rochester. But his formula was to give them a funny line, to give them the funny punchline, and then be the next person to say something after that line.
He was the most generous at that.
Yes, he was incredibly generous, and then he knew the formula to come in after they said something like, well, whatever it might have been. And people remembered the line after the punchline more than they remembered the punchline because Benny delivered it in such a way.
Can you relive with us the Seaside Sue routine?
Well, my dad would come on stage or on the radio with a bass fiddle, and Benny would say, "Well, do you know the routine, by the way?"
Myself?
Shall I do it with you? No, okay.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
This is a big chance, Dan.
Well, no, I know the routine. He says, "Are you going to play for us today? See. Are you going to play some music with the band? See. You brought your orchestra with you? See. What's your name? Cy. Cy. See. And I understand you have a sister. Yes. What's your name? Sue. Sue. See. And what does she do for a living? So. Oh. So. See. So my dad answered all the questions in one syllable. See. Cy. So. Sue. And then the whole routine was that, answering it in one question. I remember after his automobile accident, he says, and I understand you were in a car accident. He says, see? He says, what are you going to do? He says, Sue. Sue, see? You know?
So there were like many variations of that.
Oh, yes.
And I remember Jack reading about and seeing Jack would just hit the floor every time.
Oh, yes.
Your dad would keep this straight face with the sombrero hat.
That was the funny thing. My dad could keep a straight face. He was such a great actor. He'd keep a straight face. It would just drive Benny nuts because he would start laughing and he couldn't stop. He'd fall on the floor and start pounding it. But when Benny started laughing, he lost it. And he would actually fall to his knees and start pounding the floor. I mean, he loved a great joke or a funny line, and that's why George Burns kept him on the floor all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And Burns used to spend some time up at Big Bear with us also, you know. So that was really a lot of fun.
So out of all the radio shows that your father did, and there are dozens, including his own, the Mel Blanc Fix-It Shop, would you say that working on Jack's program was his favorite?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. He loved, of course, Joe Penner, Abbott and Costello, Dagwood and Blondie, Amos and Andy was on all those shows, Judy Canova, Jack Carson. He did 18 shows at one time. 18? 18 a week, Point Sublime with Cliff Arquette.
So was he was back and forth every day?
Well,
from studio to studio.
When people were eating in the little lunch areas outside of CBS and NBC over there, he would try to get a hamburger and never have time because they'd run into the next show. They'd hand him a script and he was on stage. He rarely had time for rehearsal.
Amazing. Wow.
He was a one-take guy. He'd run on the stage, change the cigarettes inside of his vest because if you had, they were all smokers at that time. But if you happened to be on the Lucky Strike show like Jack Benny and then run over to the Philip Morris show and you still had your Lucky Strike package. Oh my God! There was a cigarette monitor, and he was like, they were like little Nazis. They'd grab you by the pocket and say, "Wait a minute, what have you got in your pocket?" And you'd say, "Well, I've got Pell Mell." He said, "No, this is a Lucky Strike show, or this is a Philip Morris show." It was really strange.
Wow.
So he carried about 5 or 6 different kinds of cigarettes in the car, and on in his pocket so that he could put the right one in his vest pocket while he was doing the rehearsal.
Just trying to keep track of that. Wow.
And then on top of the scripts, where they weren't marked or anything, just hand him and said, "You're this." He knew the characters basically, so he knew what he was going to do as far as the sad postman on the Burns and Allen show, or Benny's parrot, or the Maxwell automobile,
the train conductor,
the French violin teacher. So he knew what he was going to do, and it would just say parrot, and so he would go from that. And then, of course, he'd ad-lib it, and Benny would fall down.
Wow. Well, we're gonna take another break, but when we come back, we're gonna talk about another friend of your family, Barney Rubble.
Okay.
And
that was the laugh. He said, "No, you got to learn. Got to learn that laugh."
Hey, we're going to talk a little bit about Barney, and we're also going to talk a little bit about when your father was recuperating from his accident. So you're listening to Time Travel. We're with Noel Blanc, son of Mel Blanc. We'll be right back.
I am a little tiny bird, my name is Tweety Pie. I live inside my bird cage, hanging way up high. I like to swing upon my perch and sing my little song. But there's a cat that's after me and won't let me alone. I tore a putty tat a-tweepin' upon me. I tore a putty tat as plain as he could be.
Get in touch with your Jewish heritage. You're invited to Shabbat services at the Jewish Center of Northwest Jersey. Visit us tonight and reconnect with your Jewish roots. Services begin at 7:45. Sunday school for kids and life-enriching programs for adults are all a part of the Jewish Center of Northwest Jersey. Join an intimate, active Jewish community. Visit our website at jcnwj.org or call 908-689-0762. That's 908-689-0762. Shalom.
I can't call one of my sisters without calling all 7 of them. I can have a plan that doesn't charge me a fortune in huge overages.
Welcome to the new Sprint.
I can't say flea flicker in Swahili, but I can watch exclusive sports highlights right on my phone.
Now you have the choice and flexibility you need to do more of what you want.
I can't carry a tune. Dogs howl and people have been known to throw things. But I can listen to streaming music on my phone.
With more plans and more great exclusive content to choose from, there are very few things you can't do with Sprint.
I can't stand seeing myself in photographs. My neck looks saggy. My eyes are usually closed. But I can use my new phone to take pictures of everyone else.
Sprint and Nextel have come together. Stop by the new location of your Sprint Nextel preferred retailer at 270 Main Street, Hackettstown, where you can get repairs while you wait. Call 852-9900.
Sprint. Yes, you can.
And now for the bonus round. Name 3 people we spotlight during the month of February.
Well, there's Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, and of course, Smith.
Smith? Who's Smith?
Smith Chrysler Jeep Dodge on Route 31 in Washington. And Smith is celebrating President's Day all month long with great deals that'll save you lots of presidents. Right now, get 0% financing up to 60 months on most models, or cash incentives as much as $7,000, in addition to their normal huge discounts. All in a wide selection of new and pre-owned vehicles at Smith Chrysler Jeep Dodge. And Smith has a large selection of popular certified pre-owned vehicles that are sweeter than cherry pie. And you'll be glad to know that the 5-star service department at Smith is second to none. It's a star-spangled President's Day sale going on now at Smith Chrysler Jeep Dodge on Route 31 in nearby Washington, New Jersey, and online at smithchrysler.com.
Oh, that woman. Got a mouth like an outboard motor. All the time. Put, 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 Well, I know just what you're gonna say. You're looking for a husband. Yes. Well, you're going about it all wrong, girlie. You don't bat him on the bean with a rolling pin. That comes later.
I love that bit. Okay, we're back to time travel. How you doing, Noel?
Nobody's been able to copy Foghorn Leghorn.
Really?
That was Mel's real voice, and they don't sound anything like it.
You think that's the hardest one out of all of them?
Well, because it's his real voice. That, Yosemite Sam, Pepe Le Pew, Sylvester, it's really tough because, each person has their unique voice print, and he had a unique voice print.
Sylvester was closest to his voice, right?
Sylvester, yes, because it was his voice with a little bit of spitting because he's salivating over Tweety,
Yeah.
So it was, But Yosemite was close to his timbre also, and so was Foghorn. And how he was able to do Yosemite for so many hours in front of a microphone, I never know, because if I did Yosemite for 3 minutes, my vocal cords would be on the wall. But he had vocal cords, the tremendous size and thickness, and you could just do anything with them, and it couldn't hurt him.
Noel, this is Jeff again.
Yeah.
And I just like to say that my favorite television show of all time is The Flintstones. Live action, animated. It's #1.
Really?
And it's Dan's also.
Oh, that's...
And it really affected my life growing up. You know, thinking about the Flintstones left and right, writing, fictional stories when I was a child. And hopefully maybe I have a Flintstones book in me someday.
Well, that's neat. Did you know that the first 65 episodes were not the first 8, but from 8 to 65 was recorded with Mel in a totally supine position with a body cast on, and the cast of the Flintstones gathered around his bed. He was in a full body cast, and he was laying straight back. And we run the wires underneath the house to his bed. And Joe Barbera and I used to sit in my little den, which was next to my bedroom in the house. And we had all the recording equipment, single track Ampex, in there, recording the Flintstones on single track Ampex, with Joe Barbera sitting next to me saying, "Did you like that take? What do you think of that?" And Alan Dinehart directing in the bedroom with the cast gathered around the bed.
Wow. Oh, wow.
My dad had broken every bone in his body with that accident on Dead Man's Curve in 1961. And so they had to do the Flintstones from his house, from his bed. They did about 60 of them. So it's really an amazing story. And they would sometimes, the recording sessions would last until midnight. And they'd sit around and, drink coffee and do the session.
Didn't you build the studio with you and a friend of yours?
Yes, we built it when after the accident we knew he was going to live.
Right.
We didn't know if he was going to live at first, but after that we built the studio so that he could start doing all the Warner Brothers cartoons and the Flintstones. And the studio was basically a microphone in the bedroom and the studio in my little den area.
So you yourself, Noel, you were very much involved in the production end of things.
Oh yeah, I was recording the stuff and editing, and oh yeah, my dad and I worked together for 30 years. I recorded and did the editing and the directing.
Mel Blanc Associates.
It was started as Mel Blanc Associates, went to Blanc Communications, and now is Warner Blanc. Yeah, same thing.
And when your father was recuperating, is it correct that you did some voices for Warner Brothers?
Back there in 1961, I did a few voices. I did Porky, Bugs, Elmer, Tweety and Sylvester on a couple of cartoons while he was still critical.
Wow.
That's fantastic.
And that's a long time ago, yeah. I was just a kid trying to do those voices. It was a little tough, but I see those cartoons and I can sure hear it's me, because nobody's got his voice,
Yeah. What was it like the first time you went up to the microphone to do an official cartoon?
Oh, it scared the heck out of me. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Because you stood in this huge studio. It was Soundstage 14. They didn't have the little recording studios at Warner Brothers. They set a mic out in front of a huge soundstage. There was nothing around you except blackness. And then the guy was in a little booth way the heck back there, you could barely see him. And you were standing in this enormous soundstage doing the voices. Very strange, very unlike a recording studio. They'd have a little lamp over the script, and that was about it. The rest of it was a black soundstage.
Wow.
And you know how big a soundstage is, about the size of a football field. And that's where you recorded.
Now, your father, he got along really well with Alan Reed and B. Benaderet and June Vanderpyle?
Yes. The crew of the Flintstones really got along wonderfully, especially after Mel's accident. They came over to the house every, twice, 3 times a week to do the show. They got along wonderfully.
Well, they realized what an amazing trooper your dad is, and it's a true professional.
Well, if you can imagine, in a full body cast all the way up to his neck and both legs sticking straight out, because he broke about every bone in his body.
Wow.
And there he was in the cast doing, 2 hours, 3 hours of a show. It actually took about 3 hours to do one show, because Alan Dinehart and Joe Barbera were very critical, and they wanted the direction exactly right. And in the studio, you'd have not only Alan Reed and B. Benaderet and Wilma,
Gene
Vanderpyle and my dad, but you'd have Don Messick and John Stevenson and a few other wild cards in there too. So you could have 8 people in this little bedroom doing the things. And we had 4 mics going,
Wow.
And then Joe Barbera and myself in the other part of the house listening and trying to make sense out of it.
Where would the Flintstones rank as far as your father's love of everything he did?
Not on top. He liked Barney.
Yeah.
And he loved Dino. But I think his favorites were, of course, Bugs, Daffy, Porky, Tweety, Sylvester.
Right. Well, of course, he did them for so much longer.
Yes. And he liked he liked Spacely on the Jetsons, and he liked, he did so many things for Hanna-Barbera. Where's Huddles and
Sneasley,
Squirrel, and there were so many of them that so many of those little.
Well, Speed Buggy was really the Maxwell.
Speed Buggy did, and then Captain Caveman for Hanna-Barbera also.
Hardy Har.
Gosh, there were so many characters you never realized that he did so many for Hanna-Barbera.
Wow.
And it was the same time, of course, that he was doing, when Chuck Jones moved over and started doing Tom and Jerry, he was doing the voices there, and Walter Lantz with Woody Woodpecker, so he was all over the place.
So he worked at almost every major studio at some point.
Oh, yes. And all the way to the end until 1989 when we did the Oldsmobile commercial together. He and I, that was the first time we were ever on camera together to do that national spot.
That was the first time?
Yes, we had never been on camera together for a national commercial.
For a commercial, okay.
And that was, he passed away shortly after that because it was really strange. They took him over to the hospital after we finished the shooting because he says, well, I guess I'll go over there and clear my lungs out. The doctor said, well, he could go home, I'll give him a shot. But he said, no, let me stay in the hospital overnight, I'll clear my lungs out. And they forgot to put the bed rails up. He fell out of bed, broke his femur, and because of the fat emboli that got into the brain, he was gone in about 6 weeks.
Oh.
So he really, he died from falling out of bed, basically.
Right.
But he would have been in good shape. He probably would have done the voices until he was 90.
Wow.
His voice never changed. When he was 81, 80, 79, 80, he could sing and do all the voices just as good as he could when he was 40.
Wow.
Thank God he got to work on Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah, that was fun for him.
A friend of mine and colleague, Doc South, who does our afternoon drive, I was talking to him the other day about our upcoming interview with you, Noel, and he had me cracking up, just picturing the Blank family at dinner with your father, here, please pass the carrots.
Oh, yeah.
What that must have been like.
Oh, gosh. Now, you say afternoon drive, but you guys are on afternoon drive, too.
Well, yeah, he's like the lead-in up to this.
Well, isn't this still afternoon drive for you?
This is the tail end of afternoon drive, yes.
So what time is the tail end there? My gosh, it's just starting here.
Well, we're on from 4 to 5. He's on from 12:30 to 4.
And that's what they call afternoon drive, 12:30 to 4? Because here, afternoon drive starts at 5, as you know, and goes until 10 o'clock at night.
Well, I would call it more of a midday into leading into, yeah.
Because afternoon drive, of course, you don't have the cars that we do, We've got, 32 or 64 million cars in the area with it. So everything is stopped. From 4 o'clock on, everything is stopped.
Oh, yeah, parking lot.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, I don't even get in. Try not to even get into the car. That's why we work out of the house.
Well, we've got one more break to take, and then we're going to come back and wrap things up with Noel Blanc, son of Mel Blanc. And, folks, we'll be right back.
Fillet of duck bordelaise made to deep butter. Yum, yum. Duck polonaise under glass. Rabbit cotton-bait gelatin under tooled leather. Drool to rule. Barbecue duck meat with broiled duck bill Milanese. Yummy yum. Chicken fried rabbit with cottontail sauce braised in carrots.
Your doctor tells you need an MRI. So where do you go to have it done? Easy question, because an increasing number of patients are enjoying the convenience, the comfort, and the state-of-the-art technology at Hackettstown Diagnostic Imaging on Mountain Avenue. For the past 2 years, Hackettstown Diagnostic Imaging has been changing the way people think about medical testing. First of all, they can typically schedule your appointment within 24 hours at a time that fits your busy schedule. They accept all major insurance plans, and if you're preparing yourself for a cold clinical experience, you'll be quite surprised, because at Hackettstown Diagnostic Imaging, you'll find soft lighting, warm colors, and comfortable surroundings. Their radiologists are fellowship trained and board certified. So when you need an MRI, ultrasound, CAT scan, or X-ray, you'll do well to choose Hackettstown Diagnostic Imaging in the Professional Office Complex near KFC on Mountain Avenue, Hackettstown. For more information, call 908-979-1621.
Some people need a bank for business, another for personal accounts, and still another for the internet. So how does one bank get the job done for all three? Here's Skylands Community Bank President Mike Halpin.
Well, I think most of our customers have a personal connection with our staff here at Skylands. There are many who prefer to do their banking online, so we've made it easy to do that as well. With free online banking and free bill pay, it's a user-friendly system that's convenient because you can access it 24/7.
What about online banking for the business customer?
Our CashLink system allows you to view your transactions on the screen or download them into popular accounting or financial management programs. CashLink also allows you to transfer money between your accounts as well as commercial lines of credit, term loans, and mortgages. Plus, you can pay bills, do wire transfers, and stop payments, all online.
Online and off. The bank that gets it done is Skylands Community Bank. Member FDIC, Equal Opportunity Lender.
For genuine Ford parts, superior service, and unbeatable value, trust Hackettstown Ford. Other shops might claim they can fix it for less, but are they using genuine Ford parts or whatever they have sitting on the shelf? Hackettstown Ford will do it right and do it for less. Stop in to get your genuine Motorcraft tested Tough Plus battery for just $64.95 with a powerful 84-month warranty. Tax and installation extra. Hackettstown Ford, Route 46, Hackettstown. They're better, and they'll prove it.
Oldies 1510 weather. Brought to you by Johnson Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, and Bud Lake, where the service department is now open Saturdays 8 till 2.
More clouds arriving tonight. Look for that gusty wind to subside, down around 20 to 25. Mostly cloudy tomorrow with a period of light snow early on. Could be enough to whiten the ground. Temperatures warming slowly to 35 to 40 before the day's over. And clearing at night, windy, turning colder in the teens. Tommy Else from the Oldies, 1510 Weather Center.
And we're back to time travel. We've got one more segment left, a couple more minutes in the show. We're with Noel Blanc, son of Mel Blanc, of course, who did Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Barney Rubble, and a host of other characters
a bunch of other
Hey, there's Porky.
characters, yeah.
Hi, Porky.
How you doing, Jeff? Damn House and Boyle?
Oh, it's wonderful to have Porky at the end of a show.
Oh, yes, when he says goodbye. By the way, I'm going to give you my number one more time.
I was going to ask you for that, please.
1-800-552-BUGS. And if you call right now, 1-800-552-BUGS, you can learn all about animation. If I'm down there, I'll tell you about it also. And get this incredible catalog on animation art, because it's more than a catalog. It's like a book on animation art, and it tells you all about it and how to collect it. And even if you don't want to you collect it, you can still learn about it, because it's Americana, and it's 1-800-552-BUGS, BUGS.
Excellent.
We're going to start dialing right now.
Yeah, start dialing right now.
And we've got about a minute and a half left. The book that was written about your father, you actually worked on that with your dad, correct?
Yes, I did, uh-huh.
And that's called That's Not All, Folks.
Yeah, I don't know if it's still in print. It's called That's Not All, Folks. It's probably still on eBay. You can find it.
Okay. And it's a pretty good history of your dad.
Good history of my pop, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just the greatest father, and he was great to my mom. They were married over 50 years, and he was just a neat guy to be around. He was just as un-Hollywood as possible. He was just a terrific guy.
Right. He didn't hang out and socialize with all.
No. We lived in Big Bear Lake, which only had 5,000 people, and Play-Doh Ray only had Play-Doh only had 300 people. And the stars used to come out on Wednesday night for ping pong night. So you'd have George Burns and Jimmy Stewart and all the bunch, Jack Benny and Lucille Ball coming out and playing ping pong. On ping pong night, which was Wednesday night. So that was the only time that he'd get together with the stars.
Well, Noel, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining myself, Dan, and my colleague, Jeff.
Yes, thank you so much, Noel. This
is time travel.
Wonderful.
And I hope I can be on your show again, and I'll be listening to Oldies WRNJ, if you please, at 15:10 a.m.
And we're writing more questions for you, too.
Definitely. And say hi to Hackettstown.
Oh, you bet. Thank you so much, Noel. God bless.
California. That's all from here, folks.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time on Time Travel. This is Dan and Jeff, WRNJ, Hackettstown, Washington.
And I'd like to dedicate this show to a dear neighbor and friend of mine who passed away this week, Mrs. Eileen Lydon. We love you, Mrs. Lydon. Bless your family always.
We'll see you next time.
latest from ABC News. I'm